And one of the things I've learned about poetry is the kids will find their own form. You know, don't try to prescribe a form for the kids. Don't say, I want you to do it this way. Now, I know that some kids are shy and some kids have not been successful with writing. So some of them, it would help them to have some type of structure. But I've discovered that the best poems, the ones that move you intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, are the ones where the kids, they started to write, and they started to revise. And every poem has its own form. The form will come. And like his website, Discover Writing, like let them discover their own form. And so it's taken me a while to kind of like step back and let them take over the writing. And so that's what poetry has done for me as a poetry teacher, is that it's allowed me to have fun with poetry and let them discover their own form.
Could you read one of your students from this anthology?
Yeah. And I had trouble with this student. You know, he had said F you when I was getting after him during after school duty. And about 2 or 3 days later, he actually ended up becoming part of my class. How ironic. Like, yeah, I know you like that kid. Hello. But he wrote this poem called Separation of Blood. And I'm just going to read it to you. It's self-explanatory. I sit on the laboratory chair. I look around and wait for the nurse to come. She comes, finally, and cleans my arm to find my vein. Hold still, mijo. I don't want this to get bloody. Blood passes through my vein and into the big test tube. He sits on the other side of the room, shaking as the needle touches his skin. The results come. Mr. Estrada, I bring you good news. You're his biological father. The blood percent is 98. Mijo, I'm sorry for not having faith in you. I feel bad for what I have done to you. I turn my back on him. He's my father, but I'm not his son. And so you have this whole issue about faith. And one of the neat things is that, according to him, when I had a conference with him, in real life, he did turn his back towards his father. But in real life, when he turned his back on him, it was a moment of defeat. Because imagine your father doing that to you, right? And imagine what he's saying about your mother, right? There's all these implications. But when he wrote the poem, he made himself look victorious. And that's one of the things that poetry does for you, is even when you have like a horrible moment in life, you have the power to redefine it however you want it. And so he struggled with this poem for about a good month, 4 or 5 weeks, because he would come back and read it to me, and he would read it with the other students. And that last line, I think it took him about maybe 3 or 4 days to kind of like find the perfect way to end it. And he didn't use any fancy words. He didn't rush to the thesaurus and try to look up a fancy word. He was looking for meaning. And so he was able, he understood that I'm going to use the vocabulary I know, the words that I know, but how are the words going to touch on the paper? And so we had all these discussions, and I would put this up, and instead of talking about somebody else's poem that was written 100 years ago, we were talking about a poem from a student in that class, and that's what made it powerful. And so